EDDIE-FREDERICK has got it all. Inspiration, motivation, great advice, and biting opinion pieces as only EDDIE-FREDERICK can deliver. EDDIE-FREDERICK has got it all.
If I take time and I write down all the things that I love on my island, best believe the list gon' be like 5 miles long. Best believe it's love that makes me sing this song. The cleanest breeze on the waters, friendly people meet in every corner. Togetherness and love is what we stand for. We stand for, stand for.
Oh, island in the sun. Look at how we've grown, how far we've run. 50 years we strong and more to come. More to come. More to come. I'm going higher. 50 years we're blessed with pushing fire. Still reaching for more. Going up, going up, up, and more. Going up, going up, going up, 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 up.
Going higher. Going higher. As we aspire, build up ourselves for people together. Bang, bang, bang. It's only up.
Welcome to EDDIE-FICATION, made possible by the efforts of the Center for Democracy and Good Governance, CDGG. The Center for Democracy and Good Governance is a sound organization established to promote and strengthen democracy. For too long now, our generally perceived poorly educated electorate have fallen victim to the cheap and inferior propaganda of those seeking to hold others captive under the guise of democracy. Gladly, the CDGG uses EDDIE-FICATION to help to actively pursue a sustainable approach to reorient our people towards the importance of electing and selecting people of good character to public life. Through EDDIE-FICATION, we will highlight the importance of education appropriate to our development, proper healthcare and facilities as our right, respect for law and order, not to mention upgrading our people's thinking so they could become qualified participants in the democratic process to their advantage. After all, Grenada's national constitution makes allowances for the ideal of free men to enjoy freedom from fear and want, which can be best achieved if conditions are created whereby everyone may enjoy his economic, social and political, civil and cultural rights.
I want the best for my family, so every meal has to be perfect. Every bite has to say, There's no doubt in my mind that the best in frozen meats and vegetables has to come from the Country Cold Store. Hams, turkeys, sausages, beef, pork, chicken. I just don't know my family is in safe hands. Thank you, Country Cold Store, for being there for us for the past 40 years.
There are some interesting specials available at Country Cold Store's Mini Mart while stocks last. Take advantage of these specials as they assist you to stretch your limited funds.
The Country Cold Store, providing the best in frozen meats and vegetables since 1969.
The hurricane season is now upon us, so we as Caribbean people need to remember to think safety and be prepared. Avoid venturing outside during a storm or hurricane, especially if there are strong winds. Rooftops and other debris are often blown about and can cause great damage.
Attention all forward-thinking companies. Sure, you can do with a continuous positive boost to your image and impact your bottom line. Hiring the right people with the right attitude and mindset is where to start. Even if you did not get it right through your current hiring methods, we can help develop the right mindset for your current employees. If you think training is expensive, try not training, and you will experience a perpetual downward spiral in patronage on account of increased dissatisfied customers. Take things into your hands and engage the best at motivation and customer care training with a tried and tested track record. Visit www.efrederick.com now and learn how you can change the atmosphere in your business and improve the customer experience for everyone who does business with you. Spice Island Beach Resort and Belmont Estate are two such local entities of world renown that have benefited tremendously from ongoing customer care, social skills, and motivation training. Training changes everything for the better for any business and every team member. Enhance employee performance through increased awareness and passion for the job at hand. Greater potential in your workforce awaits you through engaged, high-energy training that works. Log on now, www.EDDIE-FREDERICK.com.
Eddie Frederick has got it all. Inspiration, motivation, great advice, and biting opinion pieces as only Eddie Frederick can deliver. Eddie Frederick has got it all.
Wonderful, folks, and welcome. Welcome to Edification 242. As the world wakes up to exciting news that the U.S. presidential elections are over and a clear winner has been announced. Of course, the American populace voted overwhelmingly to return Donald Trump to the corridors of power, with sweeping changes expected upon his inauguration. Sure enough, if we mind our own business as we should, the next 4 years ought to have very little impact on us, if at all any. Goodly folks, as soon as you come in the room, as usual, do what you must. Please share, comment, like, love, and just interact as you usually do. Great to have you again. It's always a pleasure. Of course, our angel number 242 serves as a reminder to focus on personal growth and self-reflection. Take the time to assess your goals and aspirations and ensure they align with your true desires. It is through personal growth that we can achieve balance and find true fulfillment in all aspects of our lives. Before we get into the topic area, though, I just want to chime in a little on the results of the US elections. Of course, a little later on, I will expound a little bit more on a particular question. To begin with, since the 2016 US elections, I promised myself never ever to get invested in any election, whether here in Grenada or otherwise, to include the recent US polls. I did well, as I recall climbing into my bed as early as usual, switching off the lights and rolling under the covers, shortly after which I proceeded into La La Land, as I had a very demanding day ahead of me. I woke up with absolutely no regrets, having rested well to take on the challenges of the following day as early as I usually start. I want to remain consistent, folks, with my recent post and just restate that the universe has a way of delivering to us all. You see, prophecy has got to be fulfilled. Many feel that Donald Trump confirmed the US's commencement of its fall in 2016, and he's back to finish it off now. That's just how some people feel. Whether that is real or imagined, time alone will tell. The Biden administration's efforts and policies were never enough to undo the path Donald Trump already placed America on during the previous 4-year term. America's descent may very well be assured now. Let's wait and see. One thing we have to remember is the fact that the issues in America relate to America. And who are we to chime in? You see, traditional politicians in America have polluted the system, which always has a consequence many of us may not like or even understand. If there was no corruption in the organized chaos that previous Venezuelan presidents effortlessly presided over, there would have been no need for the rise to prominence and, of course, power of a Hugo Chavez, and for it to evolve into what it is today. In the same way, democracy has a way of taking people for granted and ending up leading to a purge of sorts, which usually costs lives and livelihoods. Once the replacements start getting comfortable, the cycle continues as systems have a way of purging themselves. Look at us right here in Grenada, for instance. The 1979 to 1983 revolution came, and on the basis of all its connived and contrived and exaggerated reasons for justifying itself, it established itself through consistent propaganda as an irreversible process. Remember that? Irreversible process. And one day we woke up and it was totally downhill to the catastrophic end where it devoured itself. Similarly, the man who promoted himself as Can't Done between 1995 and 2022, for the most part, on June 24th, 2022, we woke up and he was no more. At the end of the day, we must all realize that life goes on, with or without any of us. Folks, we are all here for a time. And according to the Bible, many of us love to quote unquote, this too shall pass. Americans have shown us that as much as they are helpful in times of distress towards friendly countries, they are mostly nationalists. It would do us well to adopt this by minding our own business and paying attention to the things that would help us to grow and become. Too many lessons ventilated themselves during the entire US presidential campaign for us to not benefit going forward. Lessons learned are similar to experience gained. You see, we ought to be wiser for them all as we hunker down to face our own and come up with our own homegrown solutions. We are not qualified to have America's problems, far less to make their problems ours. Enough on that front for now. A little later, you will be privy to the paradox of sorts, where people who like, follow, and support Tropical Trump don't seem to like the Donald at all. What causes that? We'll talk about that a little later on. But our topic today, folks, why so many appear unfulfilled in the age of abundance? Is our happiness hijacked? You see, sometimes, based on how we live, our refusal to position ourselves in the right environment and in the right circle, and our tendency to being taken advantage of, cause us to live a life that seems doomed. We can change that by ditching our tendency towards operating with a closed mind in exchange for, I would say, the rude awakening an open mind can present to us. Believe it or not, we are now living in the age of abundance. Even though it is wrong for any one of us to assume that happiness will naturally result just because we are alive at this time. You see, choices show us who we are. And when we are easily moved to choose what we're accustomed to and not venture into areas we do not believe we have the capacity to deal with, we will never honestly move out of our comfort zone to be exposed to better and grow. Remember what I told you, grow is an acronym for get rid of weaknesses. You see, in this edition of Edification 242, we will explore the value of simplicity, presence, and meaningful relationships to navigate the complexities of modern life, where fake is idolized and real demonized. Failure to make necessary adjustments through different choices will produce for us more of the same in an age that promises so much and often delivers little to nothing. It is no secret, folks, that our world today is brimming with unprecedented resources, technological advancements, endless conveniences. In spite of this, the question naturally arises, why does happiness seem so elusive? We live in an area where food, shelter, knowledge are more accessible than ever. Yet, despite this abundance, a sense of fulfillment often feels just out of reach. Rates of depression, anxiety, and overall dissatisfaction are on the rise, suggesting that something essential is missing. I wonder, what is that? You see, the paradox, having more but feeling less, is a defining dilemma of our time. What has gone wrong in the age of abundance? And why does it seem that our happiness has been hijacked? One glaring factor is people's tendency towards laziness. As Brian Tracy once said, the bottom 80% of the world's population are lazy and are looking for an easy way or a shortcut to success. He proffered further that if you do something repeatedly, over and over again, that is, you develop a habit being stuck in an easy way to get what you want. You see, most people, because they do not have, what should I say, imagination or even a vision of themselves being larger than the vision they bought from other people, they tend to just stay stuck. And why is that? Why is that? You see, folks, most people, because they do what should I say? They're surrounded by others who think and operate in the same way like them. They get stuck. Now, let's face it. If my mother could have told me, she was not very lettered and all of that, when you go to school, don't line with people dunce like you. Line with people who brighter than you so you could start to think like them. You see, she wasn't bright, but she was bright. You see, 95% of our thinking, folks, is determined by the people we are surrounded by and associated with on a regular basis. If you are surrounded by people who don't work hard, like to party, and value entertainment as important as oxygen that you breathe, hey, you will become just like them. In fact, you think like them, you talk like them, you dress like them, hey, and you even marry them. So you see, you become them. So you marry someone who has no ambition, just like you, and you have children. You raise them to be just like you, no ambition. Just go to work for a pay and complain about your work and the people you work for and with. And that is your contribution to the society that you criticize and are unhappy with. Could you imagine that? You see, you are part of a big, big problem. But you see, top people associate with other top people. And the law of attraction says that if you change the way you think, you start to attract new people into your life. If you become aggressive about personal development and personal growth, you would find that you will meet other people who think the same way. And the old group of people that you are associated with falls away and the new group appears. So people say, where do I find positive people who are thinking about success all the time? Hey, first become one, and naturally you will attract them. I challenge you who are interested in manifesting growth, genuine growth in your life, to work on these 4 things right now. Yourself, your happiness, your inner peace, and of course your earnings. Cha-ching. I am sure if you are really serious, you will find that these 4 things will take up all of your goddamn time. and your distractions will have to take a number and stand in line. Trust me, they will all fall away. These 4 things are serious business, and you will be minding your own business. You are the greatest project you'll ever work on. So restart, reset, refocus as many times as you need to. Just don't give up. Remember what I always say. Stress comes from us making poor choices. You see, laziness kills ambition. But if you read that backward, you realize ambition kills laziness. Anger kills wisdom. But if we read it backward, we will realize wisdom kills anger. Fear kills dreams. But dreams kill fear. Ego kills growth. But growth kills ego. Jealousy kills peace. Doubt kills confidence. But you see, peace kills jealousy. Confidence kills doubt. I'd like to put that in the comment section for you folks, because I think this is so important for you to, fathom, for you to think about, for you to ponder, so that you yourself can be reminded of the things that you really should do as a means of getting with the program and getting yourselves organized. Because remember what I told you, these 4 things, if you work on them, yourself, your happiness, your inner peace, and of course your earnings, cha-ching, oh man, you would find that you have no need in life anymore. You see, too many people seem unfulfilled in this age of abundance, and surely should cause us to wonder if our happiness is truly hijacked. Let's take a little break and we'll come back with a lot more, because we have some fire coming up.
EDDIE-FREDERICK has got it all. Inspiration, motivation, great advice, and biting opinion pieces as only EDDIE-FREDERICK can deliver. EDDIE-FREDERICK has got it all.
This is Edification, made possible by the efforts of the Center for Democracy and Good Governance, CDGG. The strength of views and opinions expressed during edification are not necessarily a reflection or representation of the sponsors and/or affiliates of this program.
The hurricane season is now upon us, so we as Caribbean people need to remember to think safely and be prepared. Avoid venturing outside during a storm or hurricane, especially if there are strong winds. Rooftops and other debris are often blown about and can cause great damage.
Oh, island in the sun. Look at how we've grown, how far we've run. 50 years we strong and more to come. More to come. More to come. Going higher. 50 years we're blessed with much fire. Still reaching for more. Going up, going up, 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 going up, going up, going up, 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 up. Higher, going higher. As we aspire, build up ourselves, put people together. Bang, bang, bang. It's only up.
EDDIE-FREDERICK has got it all. Inspiration, motivation, great advice, and biting opinion pieces as only EDDIE-FREDERICK can deliver. EDDIE-FREDERICK has got it all.
Wonderful, folks. Wonderful. So welcome back. And for those of you just joining, thank you for joining. And of course, hit that share button and let's get some more people in the room. You see, one key reason for modern discontent lies in the overwhelming number of choices that we face daily. In theory, more options should lead to more satisfaction. If only more people can reach to the point of tailoring their decisions to their preferences. Wow. But psychologist Barry Schwartz describes this phenomenon as a paradox, a puzzle of choice. When presented with too many options, whether in lifestyle, career, relationships, or even in consumer goods, we often feel paralyzed, unsure if we have made the right choice. You see, instead of feeling liberated, people may experience regret or even fear of missing out. FOMO, F-O-M-O, fear of missing out. Worrying, of course, about the opportunities that we didn't choose. In an age where we're told we can have it all, this endless choice can leave people feeling perpetually unsatisfied, trapped in a cycle of comparison and second guessing. Put greed in the mix for anyone who is not on the path to natural northward bound development. Ooh, and what do you have? Real confusion, as such people will do anything to get ahead. We must remember the 8 dimensions of success speak to physical, emotional, intellectual, social, spiritual, occupational, financial, and of course, environmental. Anyone that you know who operates in only one dimension, especially financial alone, you know they made the choice to do anything to accumulate such commodity. Their life will surely be in a state of total imbalance. We all have to strive to work on each dimension with a view to embracing them into our daily practices and habits for success to be balanced and assured. You see, technology was supposed to bring us closer together, bridging gaps between people across the world. Social media, video calls, and instant messaging. They make it possible to stay in touch with friends and family no matter the distance. Yet studies show that these digital interactions often lack the depth of in-person connections. Superficial engagements, likes, comments, brief messages, do not provide the same level of emotional nourishment as real-world relationships. You see, many people report feeling lonelier and more disconnected than ever, despite having thousands of friends online. The more people rely on digital platforms for connections, the more they find themselves feeling isolated, craving real intimacy and shared experiences that technology alone cannot fulfill. Modern consumer culture suggests that happiness can be bought. But if happiness comes from peace, no one is ever known to purchase peace. You see, advertisements promote the idea that the latest gadget, the latest car, or the latest piece of clothing will make life better, more exciting, and even solve problems. But studies show that material gains offer only temporary boosts in happiness. You see, psychologists refer to this as hedonic adaptation. What does that mean? The tendency to quickly get used to new things, rendering their impact on happiness short-lived. Hedonic adaptation. Again, I will put that in the comment section for your edification, because it is important that you're able to, cross-fertilize. Check it out and see what it really says. You see, more deeply fulfilling experiences like spending time with loved ones or engaging in meaningful work have a longer lasting impact on well-being. In the pursuit of material wealth, people often neglect these more meaningful sources of happiness, leaving them feeling empty despite having more stuff. Where did this come from? When people can see others appearing to prosper through dishonest means, it leaves the gap wide open for them to disregard values and go after things with a price tag. You see, and that is where the saying comes in. People know the price of everything and the value of nothing. Too many people around us do not know the difference between smart and downright dishonest. All they look at is the result, and they commend the thieves of our society by referring to them and regarding them as smart. When these people mostly operate on the basis of the love for only one of the 8 dimensions of success, money. You see, social media has made it easy to compare ourselves with others. And this constant comparison can be a significant source of unhappiness. Platforms like Instagram and Facebook allow people to curate the best moments of their lives, often creating an illusion of perfection. As users scroll through carefully editing snapshots of others' perceived successes, vacations, meals at various restaurants, and celebrations, they may begin to feel that their own lives fall short. You see, psychologists note that comparing oneself to others, especially in the filtered and polished world of social media, can lead to lower self-esteem, dissatisfaction, and even depression. Instead of celebrating individual paths and unique accomplishments, people may feel pressured to conform to an ideal that is largely an illusion. Fake profiles are messing up so many people out there. A simple thing as a photo of someone standing near an expensive sports car can set off the envy and jealousy alarm in others. Why? You see, they start to build a false narrative in their heads that feed their jealousy, their envy, and their malice for that person. But that person could have been innocently just walking down the road and saw a lovely car that they didn't expect to see in Grenada. Found somebody passing and asked them to take a picture. Post it. Woo! And it gets the envious and the jealous. Ooh. It gets their glands moving, man. What is that about? What is that about, folks? You see, technology enables constant connectivity, yes, which has blurred the boundaries between work and personal life for so many people. This always-on culture can lead to burnout, stress, and a lack of time for relaxation and reflection. Emails, messages, and notifications often follow individuals outside of work hours, making it difficult to disconnect fully. In the same way, messages and notifications from friends on personal matters or even nonsense matters take one off their productivity schedule while they're at work. As a result, people find it challenging to recharge and often feel as though they're always on duty, whether on the job or personally. I went to an office that I'm accustomed going to, I would say 3-4 times a year. And while waiting at the wicket, making inquiries, and looking through the window, while the person who's attending to me may have gone to attend to my matter elsewhere, I'm standing there. What do? I'm privy, so I'm seeing. And there's this person straight ahead working on the people's computer, but has 2 cell phones open in front of the computer. And every so often you see them, as we say here in Creole, joking at it and scrolling. You see, what is happening to productivity there? But that place is unionized. And if a manager were to put that person in their place, write them up, suspend them, the union want to strike for that lumpen working in the people place and scrolling, Instagramming, TikToking while they're working. Folks, you see, that's a big problem. You're on duty, but this is what you're doing to your productivity. You know what we say? When you steal time from your sleep, you are impacting negatively your health. When you steal time from your work, you are impacting negatively your productivity. You see, this relentless pace of mental and physical engagement leads to overstimulation and can be dangerously exhausting, leaving little room for the restorative downtime essential for happiness and well-being. People tell you they're tired, but go and juxtapose their tiredness with their level of productivity on the job that they're supposed to be tired from. 0. It doesn't match. How many of you can find time to disconnect and be at one with yourself while you recharge? I know I can. I do. You see, it takes discipline to do this. Human beings are inherently social creatures with a deep need for community and purpose. In previous generations, individuals often found a sense of identity and fulfillment through family, neighborhood ties, and shared social or even religious institutions, which once lived up to its moral guardianship, which, sorry to say, is no more. However, these traditional structures have weakened in recent decades, leading to a sense of isolation and a lack of purpose. The truth is, many people today struggle to find their place in a world that values individual success over collective well-being. You see, the erosion of communal bonds and shared values has left a void that material wealth just cannot fill. Without a sense of belonging and purpose, people may feel adrift, lacking the deeper connections that give life meaning. In the absence of an approach to achieving the 8 dimensions to really count oneself truly successful, people gravitate towards only one: money. You see, a loss of their soul in the process does take place. Yet they complain of not being able to find happiness. But you have to go after the 8 dimensions, not just money. Money does not define success, because you could have stolen it. You could have gotten it by foul means, as so many among us and around here have been known to accumulate. You see, if abundance alone does not create happiness, what does? You see, for many, reclaiming a sense of fulfillment requires shifting focus from external achievements and material or monetary gains to internal well-being and meaningful relationships. I know a particular friend and brother whose life epitomizes his agreement with a spiritual rule that the heavens have blessed him so that he can be a vessel through which others can be blessed. He recognizes that what he does with all that he has been blessed with matters only while he's alive. For we come with nothing, and we surely will depart with nothing. That's why it's important to live in the present and live well. You see, we all can do with our relative successes and blessings. We all can do that. We must never focus only on being able and qualified to share with others when we have amassed excess. Oh no! We must also follow the Christian teaching and cast our bread upon the water. Here are some ways people can begin to find deeper satisfaction in the modern world. Building quality connections. Making time for face-to-face interactions. Fostering close friendships and investing in family relationships can counter feelings of loneliness. Deep connections are essential for long-term happiness and provide support and understanding that digital interactions cannot replace. You notice when somebody sends you a WhatsApp, you don't even know what emotion they wrote it with, but they're choreographing how you should respond. At the end, LOL. Isn't that interesting? They're telling you how to respond. That is simply because these stratospheric media by which we are connected with people and with one another these days, they do not transmit emotions. And that is why the personal connection will always triumph. Gratitude can shift focus from what is lacking to what is already present. So practice gratitude. We all have what we need to be happy, folks. We just have to change our perspective and take a few moments each day to reflect on the positives in our lives and thus boost well-being and combat the desire for more. What about simplifying and prioritizing? Adopting a minimalist approach, focusing on what truly matters, and reducing excess can help people escape the trap of materialism. When life is simplified, there is more time and energy to devote to pursuits that bring genuine joy. What about pursuing purpose and passion? Engaging in work and hobbies that align with one's values and passions can provide a sense of purpose. Whether through creative pursuits, volunteer work, or career fulfillment, having a meaningful outlet can foster a lasting sense of satisfaction. Because of how passionate I am about what I do, I can tell you whenever I'm called for service, I am always available to help. If even it is a word or a small deed, or even to refer whoever to someone else, I always make the time to ensure that a part of me delivers something. You see, mindfulness and presence. Practicing mindfulness can help individuals, each of us, appreciate the present moment, countering the tendency to dwell on past regrets or future anxieties. By cultivating presence, people can savor simple experiences and find joy in everyday life. So you can see for yourselves that in this age, here, so and now, of abundance, it is very easy to assume that happiness should come effortlessly. One has to pay attention to stay in his or her own lane, having set goals and carved out his or her niche. However, the very conveniences and choices that define modern life often make true fulfillment harder to attain as the goalpost continues to shift. Isn't that interesting? Based on our growing desire to have and experience more. As people become more aware of the factors hijacking their happiness, they can take steps to reclaim it. Folks, you should guard your happiness jealously. One glaring factor relates to us taking that chance to make the right choice to effect that change that we so deserve. Rather than relying on material goods, digital connections, or constant activity, a focus on making money while ignoring the other 7 dimensions to genuine success, which are physical, emotional, intellectual, social, spiritual, occupational, and environmental. The path to happiness may lie in simplicity, humility, presence, and of course, meaningful relationships. If only we will aim to live at peace with ourselves first, we will find that the happiness we seek will never elude us. By focusing on these timeless sources of well-being, we can navigate the complexities of modern life and find authentic fulfillment in an age that promises everything, but often delivers too little or nothing. Folks, we have to reach to the point where we can affirm enough is enough, and that we are sick and tired of being sick and tired of being unfulfilled in this age of abundance. We will no longer contribute to allowing our happiness to be hijacked. Let's take a little break and we'll come right back with some more, folks, with some more, because we have, of course, as you can appreciate, we have a lot more where this has come from. So let's take a little 5 here and we'll come right back.
Eddie Frederick has got it all. Inspiration, motivation, great advice, and biting opinion pieces as only Eddie Frederick can deliver. Eddie Frederick has got it all.
This is Edification, made possible by the efforts of the Center for Democracy and Good Governance, CDGG. The strength of views and opinions expressed during edification are not necessarily a reflection or representation of the sponsors and/or affiliates of this program.
The hurricane season is now upon us, so we as Caribbean people need to remember to think safely and be prepared. Avoid venturing outside during a storm or hurricane, especially if there are strong winds. Rooftops and other debris are often blown about and can cause great damage.
Oh, island in the sun. Look at how we've grown, how far we've run. 50 years we strong and more to come. More to come. More to come. I'm going higher. 50 years we're blessed with motion fire. Still reaching for more. Going up, going up, 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 and more. Going up, going up, going up, 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 up.
Going higher as we aspire, build our thoughts on people together. Bang, 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 slowly up.
Eddie-Frederick has got it all. Inspiration, motivation, great advice, and biting opinion pieces as only Eddie-Frederick can deliver. Deliver. Eddie-Frederick has got it all.
Wonderful, folks, wonderful. And for those of you just joining, thank you for joining. I see a couple of you are saying that you're late. It's better late than dead on time. So it's lovely to have you. So as soon as you get in, remember to share. Goodly, folks, we do not even realize that when we resort to begging, instead of making ourselves available for serious work, where we can enjoy the spoils of our labor and live a satisfying life, we are actually hijacking our own freedom, as we can only live according to the little we get in return from begging. You see, by begging, we are giving up so many things that we have the capacity to provide for ourselves, and even more. I am not saying that he or she, who may have legitimate reasons and cause, are to be included in this bold statement. No. But a strong, strapped man who leaves his home every day to report to duty on a street corner or a place frequented by many, like let's say a supermarket, a pharmacy in Tuxedo Junction, or a bank. This begging thing is really unhinged in our society today. Folks, I saw the signs of it headed in this direction, to the disgusting degree that we are now privy to, way back when, and spoke of it since then. But I recall quite a few people who are known to not ever pay attention to anything around them. They condemned me for my harsh views on it, even back then. A couple of them meeting me now and complaining about the begging. I told them, I said, you forget my clairvoyance. I was trying to see if we could nip it at the bud back then. Because, folks, I'm on radio now going on nearly 40 years, So that's a long time ago. You see, out of the usual pretense and hypocrisy, such people were determined to pull the make-as-if card to come across as if they really cared. And that not all people are capable of reaching any heights in their life, when privately they were agreeing with me as far back as when I started calling it out. Today it has reached epidemic proportions, and only because they are feeling it, they are talking about it as if they don't know when it started. Folks, this begging thing was encouraged when the old nastiness got into office since 1984 and started to use the push-pull method to gain followers and supporters. Yes, he succeeded in its trail over the years. Look at the whole swath of entitled and dependent, poor and vulnerable citizens that were established to populate his vote farm and let loose on the greater society today. A visit to the port recently, folks, exposed me to an experience which I must share. I'm at the gate paying the Ports Authority the entry fee, and just as I took out my wallet to pay, I was engaged by someone who plies a trade of sorts in that environment. We chatted for a little bit. I moved on to the port police to seek permission now to enter. I again took out my wallet to fetch my ID card to hand over to the officer, when the same person said to me, "Hey, let me hold something now." So I said, "Go ahead and hold it. Thanks for asking me for you to hold something." By this time, he's totally confused and asked, "Well, what do you mean?" Of course, I ignored him completely, as was my intention going forward, because the only reason why he engaged me was to beg. He insisted on begging me for him to hold something. So I told him another time. He was insistent by saying to me, "But this is free barrel time, you know. You don't have to pay anything, so you could well afford to let me hold something." Folks, you see where begging gone now? They're finding the convenience in whatever atmosphere you are operating in to show you how you are qualified to give them whatever they want to hold from you. Now tell me something. The entitlement of some people. But you know, I did not even realize I was coming in for this freebie from the government. And I was not supposed to enjoy it at all. I must now transfer it to a beggar. And the audacity of this guy to justify why I could afford to let him hold something because I don't have to pay for my stuff. Could you imagine that? Where are we going with this begging thing? They are so bold. Nobody seems to care what time you go to bed, what time you wake up, and what you do for a living, whether you pull the devil by his tail or not, to have what you have or what they perceive you to have. And they just feel because they adjudge you to have more than them, you must share with them while they proceed with their lazy lives, without priorities, without a care for what day it is, and the whole 9 yards. Folks, I warned you all already. We all get paid based on our level. If your level is as a result of going to school and your favorite subjects were let out, break time, school over, and vacation, you will be paid at minimum wage. But you have to remember, the cost of living doesn't care about you. If you take a conscious decision not to develop yourself so that you can reach a different level, to be paid at that different level, dog will continue to eat your supper. A lot of you are living too unconsciously. There was this man who returned to Grenada years ago as a big shot, working with an international company, a one-time monopoly in many countries around the world, who lived the life. As soon as he retired from that company, he was all over looking for living, still sporting a consummate big shot look, while in reality forcing a lime. Got himself hooked up with a team that was well placed to receive largesse from the state, and whose fortunes were soon to be dried up so that he could be finally absorbed by his karmic path. Eventually, he was faced with some serious tragedy in his family and ended up just where he was headed all along. This same man ended up all over seeking assistance, and of course, the kindness of our people was exercised regularly. He even went to an unsuspecting young lady who loaned him $500. Needless to say, even though it may not have been his intention to not repay the loan, he had absolutely no means to repay her at all. But she had no clue. You see, a while passed, and he returned to her, promising to make good on his intention to repay her, but upped the stakes now by asking her for an additional $500 borrowed. And this time, she can take $300 of it as repayment of the first $500 loan. What's going on here, folks? The man even get creative with his dishonesty. All this time, she does not have a clue what his intention was. Could you imagine this? Even in a state of really needing help, he's trying to con an unsuspecting young lady. Needless to say, he did not get the second $500. Such a man went to the great beyond while being totally tied up in his own karma. Folks, how do you explain that? Folks, that is what happens when we live a lie. You see this thing about fake it till you make it? That is overrated, you know, folks. There's some truth to that, you know. But you must be on a trajectory somewhere. You cannot be on a southward bound journey while you're faking it, because you will not make it. That is the extent to which this begging thing has reached in Grenada today. Even though we are living in the age of abundance, as long as people are not willing to tweak their enthusiasm to falsely live like Joneses, their lives will be unfulfilled because they are actively engaged in hijacking their own happiness. Stop hijacking your happiness, folks. Stop. It is not worth it. It is really not worth it. You see, look at some of the factors that contribute to least educated people settling for less in their lives. Goodly folks, several factors contribute to people with limited education, limited awareness, limited consciousness, settling for less in their lives. You see, many well-paying or career-advancing jobs require formal education or specialized skills. Without these, uneducated individuals may have limited options and feel forced to settle for low-paying or less fulfilling jobs. So what would those people tell you? There are no opportunities in Grenada. You lie. Go and prepare yourself, and you'll see how the opportunities will come. What about low self-confidence? Folks, a lack of education, awareness, and consciousness can sometimes lead to low self-esteem and low self-confidence, making individuals feel they aren't capable of achieving more. This belief can make them less likely to pursue better opportunities or even take risks. And when they hang out with people who think like them, they become perpetually stuck at that level. What about limited knowledge of resources? Without exposure to educational environments or even associations that make sense and can lift them to higher heights, individuals may not be aware of resources like financial aid, job training programs, or our own community college here that could help them improve their circumstances. They may not even be aware of the importance of a change in their very attitude can take them to a more desirable place in their only life. What about economic pressure? You see, financial strain often forces people to take immediate work rather than pursue long-term goals. But for people from low-income backgrounds, education may feel like a luxury that they can't afford, leading them to prioritize quick earnings over furthering their education, their awareness, and their developing themselves and in a realm of deeper consciousness, so to speak. What about social influence? In some communities where education is restricted to book learning, people may not be wise enough to appreciate the wider tentacles genuine education can involve or include. As a result, education is not strongly valued or emphasized. Family or social networks may discourage individuals from aiming higher, either out of fear of failure or simply because it is not the norm in their environment. What about the lack of mentorship? Mentors and role models often inspire people to pursue their goals. Those without access to mentors may lack the guidance, the encouragement, or even the advice that could help them realize their potential. But there could be some psychological barriers too. Negative past experiences or internalized beliefs about education and success can lead to a fixed mindset where people believe their abilities are unchangeable. This can limit ambition and create a sense of acceptance around settling. And God knows that so many people settle for less around here and prefer to speed their time, doing nonsense. They every day they're rushing from work, to go home, speed to do nonsense. There are lots of people who leave work in a hurry as if they're afraid they reach home late. They have a schedule, but you never see them operating with that measure of urgency to come to work. Those same people, full of speed to go home. You see, too many of us spend our time being envious, being jealous, and being malicious towards the few who don't settle. What about institutional barriers? You see, systemic issues such as limited access to quality education, discrimination in hiring, and economic inequality often play a role in limiting opportunities for those without education. You see, these barriers make it harder for individuals to envision and pursue better futures. But there's another big one: fear of failure. He who dares to fail greatly, folks, succeeds greatly. For some, the fear of failure can be overwhelming. This fear is often compounded by a lack of coping strategies, making people more inclined to stay within their comfort zone rather than risk aiming higher. But when one is at the bottom and has nothing to lose, they can afford to take the leap of faith. What's the worst that can happen when one has nothing to lose? You see, addressing these factors often requires community support, awareness of available resources, and encouragement to develop a mindset open to learning and growth. Too many people around us operate in a false reality that as long as they secure a degree, which more often than not they crammed for and do not really understand, never mind at what stage, bachelor's, master's, whatever, that they're finished. But a winner never stops learning and growing because we are challenged every day to grow, to get rid of our weaknesses constantly. This brings to mind the serious issue of the high level of unemployability of many of our people who have been taught to become entitled and totally dependent. Folks, remember this, man. It is better to be prepared for an opportunity and not have one than to have an opportunity and not be prepared. The reason why a lot of you crying that things bad and this, that, and the other, and you want people to reach out to you, your belly touching your back first, you're hungry, is because you are not prepared to do what you need to do. And you want people to sorry for you. As long as you have the breath of life in you, and you could dress up on a Sunday with your high heel and whatever it is, and you say you're going to church. When you praying supposed to put you in a mental state of ease. It's supposed to put you in a frame of mind to get up and get. Because prayers without work is what? You have to do what you have to do. God helps those who help themselves. So even though we have the best smartphone, we are too lazy to use it for the many valuable uses it can be put to. Could you imagine, for instance, people who have the best model smartphones complaining that NADMA and the Met Office didn't forewarn them about adverse weather conditions? What's going on here, Lord? Come on. Now that's the height of laziness and a total display of how entitled we feel that someone else should warn us about taking care of ourselves with required daily doses of awareness and consciousness. Every day I live, I agree even more with the medical professor, now retired, who loves Grenada from day one, even though he found the laid-back nature and attitude of a majority convinced him early that if breathing were not automatic, lots of Grenadians would have stifled and died. You see, it is that abysmally low level of self-awareness and consciousness on account of our laziness and lack of and for discipline that feeds many of our people's unemployability. You see, a smart device is relegated to source porn, make mawet and confusion under people's lowest forms of intellect, opinions on their various social media pages, take pictures to post fake appearances of doing well, throw shade and words at others, and the self-development functions that can help to add stock to themselves totally ignored. Too many of us are contented to walk around with our whole selves instead of our best selves, showcasing for all to see our unhelpability and unemployability. And yet we wonder why fortunes favor others and not us. But what can any citizen expect from his or her tendency towards unemployability? Folks, his or her path is sure to be a journey toward poverty, as it impacts both immediate financial stability and long-term economic mobility. Calculate the impact a large swath of our unemployable population can have on the national economy collectively. And what do you have? Negatives in our chances of arriving at our true north in terms of national development. Here are some key reasons why unemployability is the route to eternal poverty: lack of income, limited skills and education, long-term unemployment penalty, negative impact on mental health and motivation, skill degradation and irrelevance, dependence on assistance programs, restricted access to social capital, generational poverty cycle, economic and social marginalization. Folks, we have to reach to the point where we say enough is enough, and that we are sick and tired of being sick and tired of being unfulfilled in this age of abundance. We will no longer contribute to allowing our happiness to be hijacked. So when people like me make ourselves available to save you from yourselves with frankness, you need to sit up and take note, as your happiness is your assignment, nobody else's. Your happiness is your own assignment. Let's take a break and we'll come back with the final segment. And folks, it's going to be raining in Georgia.
Eddie Frederick has got it all. Inspiration, motivation, great advice, and biting opinion pieces as only Eddie Frederick can deliver. Eddie Frederick has got it all.
This is Edification, made possible by the efforts of the Center for Democracy and Good Governance, CDGG. The strength of views and opinions expressed during edification are not necessarily a reflection or representation of the sponsors and or affiliates of this program.
The hurricane season is now upon us, so we as Caribbean people need to remember to especially if there are strong winds. Rooftops and other debris are often blown about and can cause great damage.
Oh, iron in the sun. Look at how we've grown, how far we've run. 50 years we strong and more to come. More to come. More to come. Going higher. 50 years we're blessed with much fire. Still reaching for more. Going up, going up, 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 and more. Going up, going up, going up, 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 up.
Higher, going higher. As we aspire, build up ourselves, put people together. Bang, bang, bang. Slowly up.
Eddie Frederick has got it all. Inspiration, motivation, great advice, and biting opinion pieces as only Eddie Frederick can deliver. Deliver. Eddie Frederick has got it all.
Wunderbar. Well, of course, folks, we're coming to a close of our Edification 242. This is our final segment, so hold it down. So as we come to a close today's sharing, folks, I want to return to an issue that is ever present on the minds of many. As I have heard this mentioned all too often from since the atmosphere surrounding the 2016 US presidential campaign, proceeding to the most recent one, which of course resulted in the return of Donald Trump to the White House for the period January 2025 to January 2029. Let me preface this by remaining consistent with my urgings that we really ought to mind our own goddamn business, as we have our own local issues here to handle, especially as in the midst of it all, we have our own tropical Trump to deal with. The popular question that pops up very often relates to, why would anyone be inclined to support Donald Trump and they will be against another leader in their country that is just like Donald Trump? Right here in Grenada, we have our own tropical Trump, Satan's grandson, whose modus operandi is none dissimilar to the Donald in the US. You see, the phenomenon of supporting a leader like Donald Trump while rejecting a similar leader in another context, such as Satan's grandson here in Grenada, can stem from a range of social, political, and psychological factors. People's support for leaders is often influenced by complex, context-specific elements that go beyond the leader's personality traits and style. You see, the following could very well represent and reflect why this can happen. Leaders resonate differently depending on the cultural and national context. Donald Trump's populist style appeals to certain American values, particularly the notions of individualism, economic nationalism, and American exceptionalism. In the US, some supporters see Trump as a symbol of resistance to the establishment and a defender of American values. However, this same style might not resonate in Grenada, where people may have different cultural expectations of leadership, focusing on community values, social cohesion, and respect for tradition. Each country has its own unique political landscape and historical background, which shapes how people view leaders with a populist or even authoritarian style. In Grenada, people may have had different experiences with leaders who promise sweeping reforms through intentional lies or make bold, polarizing statements. If past leaders with similar traits to Trump have had negative impacts on the country, citizens might be more cautious about supporting someone like Satan's grandson going forward, even if he shares Trump's style. You see, in the US, many of Trump's supporters may not perceive his rhetoric or style as problematic because they associate with his perceived success in business and view it as a reaction against an establishment they grew to distrust. In Grenada, however, people may view a similar approach as incompatible with their country's needs and recent political history. Media plays a significant role in shaping perceptions of leaders. You see, in the US, conservative media outlets have created a strong positive narrative around Trump, framing him as a champion of the common person and an outsider taking on the deep state. This narrative can create a halo effect where people see Trump in a more favorable light despite his glaring flaws. 2 victories at the poll confirm this. You see, don't forget, our own tropical Trump considers himself a champion of the poor and vulnerable. While their numbers have increased tremendously under him, their status never changed because the purpose was to pelt them, pack them into a vote farm. And the closest we ever got to knowing how many people are on that farm is in the last release by Dr. Pear. Over 15,000 people, mostly women with children, depended on handouts from Satan's grandson. You see, in Grenada, however, the media may not present Satan's grandson in the same way. If the local media would have taken the time to seriously scrutinize his actions, characterizing him as he truly is, and listen to how he truly is, inferior, self-serving, and divisive, the public may have been less inclined to support him for as long as they have. You see, the media, in a constitutional democracy as ours, occupies the position as the 5th bastion of the society. And they ought to have held all public figures, especially politicians, accountable and thus shape the right public perception. But because of their weak backgrounds and lack of commitment to the principles of genuine journalism, many of their members became absorbed by the same thing they were to protect the people from, rendering them totally useless for the most part. They have reached to the point where they are assisting in the projection of the evil and demonic activities of corruption and downright dishonesty on the new administration, when in truth and in fact, they should be calling out the old administration for their attempts to accuse anybody of anything which they have the fame for. Some of their members have been actively involved in making the defeated leader's flaws seem forgivable, while amplifying the weaknesses real or imagined of their replacement. You see, some of Trump's appeals come from his promises to revive the economy, bring jobs back to the US, and stand against globalism. This economic focus resonates with working class Americans who feel left behind by globalization. In Grenada, the economic context and priorities of the working class may be different. If Satan's grandson's policies are seen as self-serving or failing to benefit the average Grenadian, he will continue to not be able to garner the same support, even if he uses similar populist rhetoric. After all, he is tried and tested as a leader without philosophy and focus on anything other than himself, and regaling himself with the status of prime minister, where he can wield power to go after his opponents in the most savage of manners. And that's all. People often view foreign leaders through a different lens than local leaders. And distance can create a sense of admiration or mystique, I dare say. For example, some supporters of Trump outside of the US, here in Grenada, see him as strong, assertive leader without feeling the direct consequences of his policies. They may overlook or romanticize his divisive qualities because they don't experience the direct impact. However, when evaluating a similar leader within their own country, people may be more critical and sensitive to the leader's actions and policies. They experience the effects of his poor leadership firsthand, which often brings more scrutiny and less tolerance for behaviors they might otherwise overlook in a distant figure. You see, in the US, many Trump supporters feel emotionally connected to him because he aligns with their grievances, insecurities, and desire for change. Trump's communication style, directness, and outsider persona have resonated with certain American subcultures. In Grenada, Satan's grandson has been able to elicit the same emotional response or identity-based loyalty. After all, he successfully appeals to the baser instincts of a large swath of the Grenadian population, many of whom dwell in the subculture. Cultural differences and national pride shape people's views of who they want their leader to be. And whereas some Grenadians might not feel as emotionally invested in a leader with a similar style to Trump, there are others who do, bigly. You see, although two leaders may have similar personalities or even approaches, their policy goals and ideological stances can vary widely because one has and the other doesn't. You see, they both operate in two different societies, where one is known to have serious checks and balances, while the other made sure that from 1995 to 2022, for the most part, that he totally dismantled every opportunity at checks and balances, exacerbating the chances of excesses with impunity in keeping with his self-serving agenda. Supporters of Trump in the US may agree with his specific policies on issues like immigration, deregulation, or economic nationalism, even if they don't like his style. In Grenada, Satan's grandson has never been known to operate on any philosophical or policy position beneficial to the nation, even though he has been in office the longest since independence. You see, essentially, people might be willing to overlook the leader's personality flaws if his or her policies and philosophy align with their interests. If the policies don't match, however, they may be more critical of the leader's character and approach. Political affiliation and group identity often shape support for leaders. In the US, Trump is seen by many as the embodiment of conservative ideals, making him a rallying figure for Republicans. In Grenada, political affiliations may lead people to support or oppose a leader like Satan's grandson based on their alignment with or opposition to his political party, which is mainly made up of people who are not inclined to support any structure or order, as proved over time. So even if the leader shares Trump-like traits, partisanship will play a strong role in determining public support. Now, charisma and connection, those two play crucial roles in how people perceive leaders. Trump's success as a media personality before entering politics helped him cultivate a connection with his base that many supporters find magnetic. Satan's grandson lacks a similarly personal or compelling connection with Grenadians, as he's known to be a bold-faced liar who sets out to deceive his audience, rob them of their innocence, and then use them for his own self-serving purposes. Lack of genuine charisma and the absence of sincerity have been I don't even know how to call it. They somewhat outweigh his attempts at delivering sweet talk alone. Support for leaders often hinge on tangible results. You see, Trump's supporters point to policies they feel positively impacted them, like tax cuts, deregulation, or economic growth. For Grenadians, support for a similar leader would depend on whether his policies are delivering results that people can feel in their daily lives. Look at the current leader. The current leader, of course, the Deacon Mitchell, who replaced Satan's grandson. He presides over an administration that has been delivering with the help of a few, I don't know what to say, because Satan's grandson has been benefiting from the ill-visioned, that's my word, and bad-minded media personnel that we have in Grenada, who are demonizing the good Mitchell, the better Mitchell. Could you imagine that? When in truth and in fact, the minimum wage was never raised by Satan's grandson, who says he's the champion of the poor and vulnerable. And you have recipients of an increased minimum wage who still love that nastiness. You didn't see something wrong with them, Edward? That green juice strong. Look at the standardization and increase of the pay or the emoluments for Imanis. Look at the lifting of the social assistance monthly amounts to the people who need it, the poor and vulnerable, while of course filtering the list to ensure that who are not supposed to be on it are not on it. They're taken off, and of course they're vexed like hell because they're accustomed getting free money, and that's not happening now. And you're hearing all kind of people, the government don't have no heart. They don't have no heart. They don't like poor people. No, they don't like thieves. How come they find other people to put on it? How come a lot of the same people that support Satan's grandson on it, and they don't like poor people? Well, then they should have done away with this, with the social assistance program. You see, the same administration paid pension, the backlog, and of course reinstated pension for government, over 4,000 public servants. And the list can go on, you know. Satan's grandson, on the contrary, as a leader, has fallen down on, well, I mean, he promises were never made to be kept. They were just made to hoodwink people, fool them, and string them along. And they still wanted to go back for 4th, 5th, and 6th helping of that nastiness. You see, folks, you all have to get with the program, you know. Satan's grandson has not been able to deliver sustainable and clear improvements in people's lives, except for the few greedy and vultures who have been creaming off the top, while they too join him in dishing out scraps and crumbs to the needy so that they could remain needy and stay on the vote farm so that their largesse could flow, turning them into permanently entitled and dependent, whom he brands poor and vulnerable today, claiming that he loves them while relegating them to a life of hell. So even as he uses populist appeals or projects some sort of strength, he is to be scorned for his abject dishonesty and consistency with it over the years. You see, the tendency to support a leader like Trump while rejecting a similar leader within one's own country reflects the influence of cultural context, media framing, economic interests, and personal connections with the public. People often support leaders not only for their personality, but for their context-specific issues that they address, the values they represent, and the concrete results they deliver. If, as the longest-serving leader of Grenada in a post-independence context, nothing meaningful has been delivered to impact positively the lives of people en masse, what qualifies such leader to even adopt a theme with the word rescue in it in a bid to return? Understanding these dynamics, folks, reveals that political support is rarely just about personality. It's deeply tied to cultural, historical, and personal factors that vary significantly across different societies. Why so many appear unfulfilled in an age of abundance? Is our happiness hijacked? You tell me. If we would only sit up and pay attention, we would be further along with our awareness and consciousness, and our very happiness will never be compromised. Folks, you think I should go now? I am in, I am out, and I am gone. Thank you for joining. Continue to share. See you next week at the same time, same place, for more extraordinary programming. Until then, I bid you farewell. Stay safe, stay well, remain vigilant, stay lifted, and remain focused. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube. Just type in my name, Edward or Eddie. No fake, just Edward or Eddie. Subscribe, like, and share. And be prepared to receive your mental multivitamins as straight up as I deliver them. Take good care of your wonderful selves, folks, and have a wonderful, productive week ahead. Toodaloo, as they say. Take great care.
Eddie Frederick has got it all. Inspiration, motivation, great advice, and biting opinion pieces as only Eddie Frederick can deliver. Eddie Frederick has got it all.
This has been Edification, made possible by the efforts of the Center for Democracy and Good Governance, CDGG. The Center for Democracy and Good Governance is a sound organization established to promote and strengthen democracy. For too long now, our generally perceived poorly educated electorate have fallen victim to the cheap and inferior propaganda of those seeking to hold others captive under the guise of democracy. Gladly, the CDGG uses edification to help to actively pursue a sustainable approach to reorient our people towards the importance of electing and selecting people of good character to public life. Through edification, we will highlight the importance of education appropriate to our development, proper healthcare and facilities as our right, respect for law and order, not to mention upgrading our people's thinking so they could become qualified participants in the democratic process to their advantage. After all, Grenada's national constitution makes allowances for the ideal of free men to enjoy freedom from fear and want, which can be best achieved if conditions are created whereby everyone may enjoy his economic, social and political, civil and cultural rights.
I want the best for my family, so every meal has to be perfect. Every bite has to say, There's no doubt in my mind that the best in frozen meats and vegetables has to come from the Country Cold Store. Hams, turkeys, sausages, beef, pork, chicken. I just don't know my family is in safe hands. Thank you, Country Cold Store, for being there for us for the past 40 years.
There are some interesting specials available at Country Cold Store's Mini Mart while stocks last. Take advantage of these specials as they assist you to stretch your limited funds.
The Country Cold Store, providing the best in frozen meats and vegetables since 1969.
The hurricane season is now upon us, so we as Caribbean people need to remember to think safely and be prepared. Avoid venturing outside during a storm or hurricane, especially if there are strong winds. Rooftops and other debris are often blown about and can cause great damage.
Attention all forward-thinking companies. Sure, you can do with a continuous positive boost to your image and impact your bottom line. Hiring the right people with the right attitude and mindset is where to start. Even if you did not get it right through your current hiring methods, we can help develop the right mindset for your current employees. If you think training is expensive, try not training, and you will experience a perpetual downward spiral in patronage on account of increased dissatisfied customers. Take things into your hands and engage the best at motivation and customer care training with a tried and tested track record. Visit www.efrederick.com now and learn how you can change the atmosphere in your business and improve the customer experience for everyone who does business with you. Spice Island Beach Resort and Belmont Estate are two such local entities of world renown that have benefited tremendously from ongoing customer care, social skills, and motivation training. Training changes everything for the better for any business and every team member. Enhance employee performance through increased awareness and passion for the job at hand. Greater potential in your workforce awaits you through engaged, high-energy training that works. Log on now, www.EDDIE-FREDERICK.com.
Eddie Frederick has got it all. Inspiration, motivation, great advice, and biting opinion pieces as only Eddie Frederick can deliver. Deliver. Eddie Frederick has got it all.
Take time and I write down all the things that I love on my island. Best believe my list gon' be like 5 miles long. Best believe it's love that makes me sing this song. The cleanest breeze on the waters. Friendly people meet in every corner. Togetherness and love is what we stand for. We stand for. Stand for.
Oh, island in the sun. Look at how we've grown, how far we've run. 50 years we strong and more to come. More to come. More to come.